Merseyside.
A social enterprise that works with teenage girls across Merseyside and Cheshire is calling for schools to stay open to protect our most at-risk girls. Girls Out Loud offers programmes to help youngsters to channel their energies and potential to make better life choices. But for the last year, many girls have had no structure, no support, no schooling. 1 in 3 have faced online bullying during the pandemic. Grooming offences are up and domestic violence rates are up. Jane Kenyon is the founder of Girls Out Loud and joins us now. Jane, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
These are pretty awful headlines.
They are. And let's be clear. I mean, Girls Out Loud has been working with teenage girls for over a decade. So we were already in a mental health crisis before COVID. So COVID isn't the cause of a lot of these things. It's just amplifying them. And it's making them a lot worse. So if you think about girls stuck at home for the past year, one of the things they're doing is spending an awful lot more time online. And they're taking more risks online because they're bored and they're lonely and they're unsupervised. So that's why we're seeing a lot more grooming happening online, over 9 times higher in lockdown. That's why we're seeing explicit text sent by children going up by 183% in lockdown. And as you mentioned, cyberbullying going up. So obviously, these things have an effect on mental health and well-being. You can't expect, to take the safety net away from teenage girls and them to behave like adults. They don't. So, we know that all that time online has an effect on their mental health for no other reason than that they're spending so much time doing that is what they're not doing. So they're not sleeping particularly well, and they don't do any physical activity. We've seen a rise in antidepressant subscriptions. We've seen a rise in self-harming. We lose more teenagers to suicide than we do to COVID. So that's something to think about. Calls to Childline are up by 40%, and eating disorders are up by around 42% as well. So our teenage girls, their well-being and their mental health is a crisis. And the very best way to deal with that is to open up the schools for them to go back, because contrary to popular belief, home is not a safe place for a lot of teenagers. Domestic violence is up between 30 to 50% depending on where you live. Police report 75% increase in child neglect during lockdown. Many children are digitally excluded, so they don't have a computer or online broadband at home, so they're completely disconnected. So school is a safe place for these children. It's where they access support. It's where they feel cared for. It's where they have school teachers and professionals like Girls Out Loud who can spot the safeguarding issues early enough for prevention. It's where they have friends and advocates and a structure and a chance of a community and a chance of a meal for a lot of them. School isn't just where you do English, maths and science. It's a space to grow and to learn. So in the past 12 months, we've reversed a decade of progress on social mobility. So the gap between the rich and the poor just gets wider and wider, and we're leaving a lot of these poor children behind, and they will never catch up. I mean, how do you catch up on losing a year of education and emotional development?
Jane,
we have to act now.
Jane, tell me about the beginnings for Girls Out Loud.
The beginnings? Yeah. So, so I'm an entrepreneur by trade. I've been working running businesses since I was 28, and throughout my 30s, I started coaching and doing leadership training and empowering women. So I had an organisation for women called the Well Heeled Divas, and I was running retreats and personal development workshops and coaching programs for women. And it was my work with women that led me to questioning what we were doing to support teenage girls to pick up the baton. And I was uncomfortable with the lack of confidence and aspiration. I was uncomfortable with the level of teen pregnancies. I started doing a little bit of work in schools as a speaker, and it went from there, really. I just decided that didn't like what I was seeing, woman of action, do something about it.
And where do you work? Where do your services, where are they offered?
Well, we're based in Manchester, so we work all across Manchester, Cheshire, Lancashire and Merseyside.
Do you know what? I just listening to you talk about, you're uncomfortable with what you see. I've
Yes.
got two girls. I've got an 8-year-old and a
Okay.
10-year-old. So they're not at the
Okay.
teenage levels yet, but that's all ahead of
You've
me.
got it all to come. Yeah.
Got it all to come. And Jane, I've got to say, I wouldn't want to be a teenage girl now. I think times are very different. Times are a lot harder for, technology is wonderful in so many measures, but it does make things an awful lifestyle for some children.
Absolutely. It's 24/7, isn't it? It doesn't turn off. Everything happens on that smartphone.
Yeah.
Your life is on that smartphone. And not only that, the pressure to look a certain way, the pressure to behave a certain way, before you even thought about your aspirations, the kind of like the levels of sexual assault, sexual abuse, harassment, or the Me Too movement that's highlighted that, the stuff that they're dealing with at a very, very young age, it probably starts around 12, so you've not got long. No. It's tough. It's really tough, and that's why they need support, and that's why organisations like Girls Out Loud are needed, because they need somebody to talk to. They need a mentor. They need a coach. They need to be able to express what's going on in their life. They need coping skills. They need resilience. They need to know that they're already enough, that they don't need to look like Kim Kardashian, that they don't need to do this, that, and the other. So they need us to step up and be role models for them. And that's what Girls Out Loud does. It takes role models into schools to support those girls' mental health and wellness and raise their aspirations.
And Jane, and what you're calling for at the moment is for the schools to be able to reopen for those girls that need it.
Yes, well, schools have to be open for vulnerable, for at risk, for the very at-risk girls. But, that is a very small criteria. I think schools need to be open for any girls that need it, that feel like lonely and isolated, that don't have any supervision at home or structure. I think schools need to open for all children that need it so that we can go in and support those girls. I also think that we are going to take a long time to recover from this. Even the teachers are talking about what they're going to be faced with when the children do come back into school. So let's get them back in. They're safer in school than out. The COVID deaths are not affecting young people. Let's get them in school. The danger of doing nothing is going to be a lifetime of pain for a lot of those children, because they will never catch up unless we start doing something now. And what Girls Out Loud are calling for is not only for the schools to open, but for the big companies in the area to support our work through their corporate social responsibility, because we need to fund that work to be able to get to more girls. And also for all of us to take some responsibility, because this is a society issue. We will all feel the impact of this. We will all feel the impact if we neglect our children. And so
Jane,
we all need to think about that.
You're so right. We will all feel the impact of it. Jane Kenyon, founder of Girls Out Loud, thank you so much for your time. You take very good care of yourself, and all the very best with the plans that you're calling for, of course. 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 Calling for.